Got 4 teams on bye next week. Let's beat the waiver wire right now on FFT Express. All right, welcome back. Very cringe. Dave is cringing. Sorry. Listen, before we get into beat the waiver wire, we got Thursday Night Football, and we have Aaron Jones expected.
No.
Yeah, Aaron Jones expected to play.
Yeah, get it out. Aaron Jones, what does it mean for him? What does it mean for Jordan Mason? That's what you're about to ask, or should we talk about Aranda Gadsden some more?
No.
Look, I think the whole concept of Thursday Night Football stinks for players because they just played on Sunday. Now they got to turn around. And here's Aaron Jones with fresh legs. And so to me, it would make sense that the Vikings use him and use those fresh legs. We don't know how healthy he is, but the fact that he's been sidelined for so long encourages me that he could be certainly used in passing down situations and maybe get a little run on top of it. So I don't think it's particularly great for Jordan Mason. Mason kind of becomes a touchdown dependent running back in week number 8, but there aren't a lot of running backs that we want to start. So by default, Mason's still a number 2 fantasy running back. Aaron Jones probably right behind him. Both of these guys probably in the neighborhood of like RB 20 to 26 for fantasy managers. Doesn't mean that they're going to go off. It's the Chargers. Their run defense runs hot and cold. But I do think that Aaron Jones will have a slight advantage because he hasn't played in a while and his legs are fresh compared to everybody else on the field.
Okay, and let's not forget, the Chargers are allowing 6.5 yards per carry to running backs in their last 3 games. They've given up 29 or more points to 3 straight running backs. We expect them to improve, but this has been, as of late, a great matchup.
Right, some pretty great running backs that they've gone up against.
Well, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, yeah.
He's the best one.
And Devon A. Shannon, Jonathan Taylor, but still, it's bad. All right, who's the headliner for beating the waiver wire?
How about a running back that's not even playing in week number 8? It's Bam Bam Knight. Week 9, taking on the Dallas Cowboys, available in about half of CBS Sports leagues, and I suspect that more people will drop him going into the bye. But if you see him on your waiver wire, pick him up. Love the matchup for him against the Dallas Cowboys. And the main reason why it's him instead of somebody that you could use in week 8 or week 9 is because there are a lot of wide receivers that are decent stashes, none that are great stashes. There are some tight ends that are some pretty good stashes, none that are amazing. So because there's some good depth at wide receiver and tight end, and especially for those people that are just absolutely scrambling for starters in week number 8, we've got names, you don't have to worry about them, but they're not the best name that you could stash going into week 9.
All right. Well, you want to start with quarterbacks or DSTs?
I'll follow your lead.
Let's go to DS quarterbacks. Let's go to quarterbacks.
Okay. Not a lot of quarterbacks are available overall, so a lot of the players that I'm going to give you are available in around like 25 to 33% of fantasy leagues, hoping that one of these guys will be there for you. You can use Joe Flacco or Aaron Rodgers in week 8, potentially in week 9 in the case of Aaron Rodgers against Indianapolis. Brock Purdy could be back this week, but he's already rostered in too many leagues. Sam Darnold, his number is rising because people are cutting him. He's got Washington in week 9. They've allowed a bunch of fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. And then the one that is probably widely available, man, he hasn't looked great, but Trevor Lawrence, he's available in about half of CBS Sports leagues. He takes on the Raiders, and their defense just has not been able to get it together. I suspect that they won't be able to get it together. Trevor Lawrence might be okay as a bye week replacement in week 9. So if you've got one of the quarterbacks that are on bye in week 9, it's Baker Mayfield, it's Jalen Hurts, it's Dylan Gabriel, it's Justin Fields, just kidding on those last 2, then you can go and get Trevor Lawrence now, stash him for the week, let him play in week 9, and then you can cut his butt as soon as week 9's over and go back to your main starter.
Okay. Looking at Sam Darnold's schedule, because he does feel like a guy that's played so well this year, not necessarily for fantasy, just in IRL.
Sure.
You know, he doesn't have the best schedule. Washington is a good matchup. Arizona is 8th against quarterbacks. The Rams are 6th. The Titans are 10th. The Vikings are 7th. The Falcons are 2nd. So those are his next 6 matchups. I don't know that all of those teams are actually that good against quarterbacks, but a lot of it is pass attempts, and he may not need to throw that much against the Cardinals, against the Titans. The Falcons are legitimately good. The Rams are legitimately good. So he's not someone that I'm dying to stash, even though he's playing at a very high level.
No, it's a 1-week stash type of a deal. And it's just like Trevor Lawrence. It's whichever one you like better of the two. I'll probably have Darnold ranked ahead of Lawrence. If they're available on your waiver wire come Saturday night, add them then. Whoever you're dropping, you might be able to get back on Tuesday, depending what happens on Sunday. And then you just carry them through the week. You start them in week 9, and then they're off your team as soon as week 9's over.
Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about the rest of the beat the waiver wire players after this. Okay, let's go to running back. Zonovan Knight. Anyone else?
There are some other names. Kyle Monangai is still out there in about a third of CBS Sports leagues. Tyjae Spears, Blake Corum in Week 9 gets New Orleans, so maybe he gets a little extra run. And we always get accused of, oh, those guys, they're already rostered in my leagues. Well, here's some guys that might not be. Isaiah Davis, 76% available at Cincinnati in week number 8, and then the Jets are on bye before the trade deadline. So if they do trade Breece Hall, Isaiah Davis is going to be the next guy up for them. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to stash a player who could become maybe an RB2. I mean, I know the Jets offense really isn't anything to write home about, but I'd say Davis is a pretty decent prospect. A couple more running backs that are stash only. Bashal Tutin is starting to get cut across the board. Jags are on bye this week, so his number is rising, just like Trevor Lawrence, available in about half of CBS Sports leagues. He's got Vegas in week 9. Ollie Gordon, we heard the Dolphins talk about how they wanted to get him a little bit more involved. He's available in 65% of the leagues. He would not be available in any leagues if Devon Achane were to miss some time. He would be the lead running back for the Miami Dolphins. A couple of other running backs, Brashard Smith, and then a gross one, Jerome Ford. That's for the desperate fantasy managers who just need some running backs that have a pulse, might get around 10 touches in the game. Smith, obviously better than Ford, but those are the two on that list.
You like any wide receivers?
I've got too many wide receivers, and I know that people are desperate for wide receivers for week 8, so I'm only going to focus on wide receivers that you can use now. These are not stash wide receivers. I will give you the name of one stash wide receiver who you've been talking about for a couple of weeks. I'll do that after I go through this list. But you're desperate for a wide receiver in week 8. This is week 8 only for Darnell Mooney, Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, Josh Reynolds. This list is suddenly getting really gross. Xavier Legette and Sterling Shepard. In the case of Reynolds, he's available in pretty much every league. All of these wide receivers are available in at least half of CBS Sports leagues. And I think that Mooney especially has the chance to have a good game in week number 8.
Okay, and who is the stash?
The stash is Darius Slayton, who I know that you're excited to talk about. I wouldn't use him in week 8, but week 9 against the 49ers, if that Niners secondary is still banged up, we know their pass rush is going to be banged up. Could be a really good game for Slayton. He's available in 80% of leagues.
Okay. Yeah, I think Christian Kirk's a decent stash too. 29%. You know what? No.
I'm kind of tired of talking about him. I think Jalen Noel isn't a bad. He's a better stash at this point than Christian Kirk.
Maybe.
And he's out there in like 90% of leagues. I just don't know if I have the guts to start Jalen Noel this week because I don't really know what to expect. I'd have to be pretty desperate. And then next week, same exact thing against Denver.
Tight ends.
Okay, David Njoku is going to be the top name here. He's available in 41% of leagues. It looks like he's got a chance to play against New England, and then he's on bye. He's also a trade candidate. So David Njoku could see some real upside moving forward. Other tight ends for week 8 only, Cade Otton, Evan Ingram, Mason Taylor. Am I really going back to him? You know, I had to apologize to somebody for recommending Mason Taylor 2 weeks in a row. They were so upset about it, but he does play against Cincinnati in week number 8. A deep play for week 8 and usable for week 9. This might actually be my favorite non-running back to add and possibly start this week, Adam. It's Dalton Schultz, 69% available for the Texans. This is the player that I think CJ Stroud is going to lean on the most in this passing game. He's got the most time spent with him. They are on the same page. I don't think he's necessarily going to go off for like 16 PPR points, but I think he'll be okay this week, okay next week. And so if you're streaming tight ends, Dalton Schultz is a name to look at.
Do you care at all about the Bears tight ends against the Bengals next week as a stash?
It would be Colson Loveland because Cole Kmet is on the injury report this week. I can't recommend adding him when I don't know if he's going to play. I know Loveland will play. He did have some timing issues with Caleb Williams when I went back and watched the Bears offense this week. So I don't know what to expect. I don't know if he'll see a huge target volume. Maybe I'd be more encouraged if something bad were to have happened where DJ Moore makes mistakes, Luther Burden makes mistakes. But otherwise, I think if you're starting Loveland, it's kind of like as a streaming what the heck type play. And I think we can do better than that when it comes to week 9.
All right, go ahead and I'm going to say stash the Rams DST. They're on a bye this week. They're now 61% rostered. They're good, and they get the Saints next week at home. Saints have really struggled on the road. Any other DSTs you want to stash?
You can stash the Seahawks DST and the Lions DST, but I agree with you that the Rams DST in that matchup against New Orleans is pretty good. One last thing. If you're desperate for a DST in week number 8. These aren't necessarily stashes for beyond week 8, but the Bucks, the Bills, and yes, the Bengals, they're playing the Jets. It's the only reason those 3 DSTs might help you pull off a dub in week 8.
Yeah, I mean, look, we got Cleveland and Philadelphia on a bye next week. Dave's talking about week 8, but for week 9, Cleveland, Philadelphia are on a bye. The Bills and the Chiefs are facing each other. You're not going to want a DST there. You're not. Yeah, Denver, you're good. Houston against Denver, you're probably good there. But there is going to be a need. So I think really the Rams look like a great stash if you've got the Rods. It's tough to stash guys this week because you're already like dealing with all these bye weeks and you've picked up all these players that have to start. But if you can stash the Rams DST, I think that'd be pretty cool. All right, party on. We will talk to you next. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today with starter sit for the NFC home games and a recap of Thursday Night Football. See you later, everyone.